Greetings and welcome to the live stream.
Almost.
May the fourth be with you.
Special edition.
I'm not sure about how special this edition is, but Daniel was funny enough to put an Easter egg in here. So if you're with us right from the get-go, you can of course have a look around.
A quite obvious Easter egg, but also kind of to nip on the Easter egg here, of course. We're kind of colored correctly here today, so with kind of the engineering and commander track here on air, answering your questions. So for all of you who get that reference,
all is well. Okay, I see some people are already here. Welcome, Innovate to Dev. Sorry, I'm just like, I know your profile pic, but I'm of course always a little bit confused about the name because I usually don't read it out loud, just associate stuff with you. Thank you, maybe to call you out again, like directly, thank you for all the stuff you do on the Discord as well. Anybody who's only watching us on YouTube and does not know that we have a Discord, there's a link below where you can also put in questions also during the live show. Lisandro, I already saw your question and we're gonna tackle it later in the episode. But I wanted to sort of like talk today about a little something Daniel and I have been talking earlier about. Sort of a related question to what Lisandro was asked, and I wanted to just quickly get you up to speed, maybe get some feedback from you as well, put them in the comments, share your thoughts on Discord, but overall, get some info out there. The main topic for today is what about VM and Docker support? We are saying on our homepage that the supported tier has, with a gray check mark, access to VM and Docker support, and of course all unlimited subscribers will get this as well. But what's up with that, and how are we thinking about it? I quickly want to go into maybe explaining why we have this the way it is, and maybe then talk about sort of like our roadmap in regards to this, and then we will maybe go into some of the questions that Lisandro had as well. So the reason why we have it for the supported tier and for the unlimited tier is because we wanted to sort of like Portmaster is free and it's free for privacy purposes, and we're not limiting it in any way. But of course, we have to pay our bills as well. And so this is the reason why we always thought about how can we provide great privacy for everybody, but then sort of like have sort of like a trade with everybody who's supporting the development. And so what we're saying and how we're calling it, it's early access to features. Mm-hmm. And how Daniel has been thinking about it is a very cool thing that we sort of like have stuff like VM support in the supporter tier locked in when it comes out. And then when the next thing comes out, which we don't yet know, and VM support is not around the corner yet, but when the next thing comes in, then VM support will go for the free into the free tier, and the next thing will be in the supported tier. So the supporters and unlimited users will always be one major feature ahead of the free and community support people, just as a goodie for those who support us and support the development. They should get something in return as well, and not just
and to stress this point here, our vision is absolutely to bring everyone great privacy, and that's what the Portmaster is already doing. It brings you a very decent amount of basic privacy for your whole system, and we don't want to change that. We don't want to charge for Portmaster because we believe that the world needs this. And you all showing up on Discord and all that proves that this is true, that the world needs that. But we still kind of have to pay our bills and eat something. So we kind of are looking for ways how to kind of fund all this work. Of course, one is the SPN, which is an advanced privacy system that also consumes a lot of money by itself, and it is a lot of work to build that. But Portmaster itself, the kind of client local only features, these are now currently just paid by what we have and what we get through the SPN, but we also want to give people a way and have it be able to fund itself too. So the idea is that the SPN will fund itself and Portmaster will fund itself. And so that's what the supporter tier is for all the people who see the value in what Portmaster is doing for them and want to support that. And as a thank you for that, all these people who chip in do get the kind of next major feature earlier. And then when the next one comes out, as Rafael said, the earlier one will trickle down to everyone. So, and the first of these features will be VM support. VM support, currently VMs are not officially supported. There are workarounds to get kind of things working somehow, but they are not supported and sometimes bypass VPN. The Portmaster sometimes won't work at all. Kind of a mixture of everything because we just don't have the resources to go into that. And the idea is to when we go into that, then offer this to the supporters first, exclusively first, and then to everyone for free later. So what will VM support be? So VM support, of course, will mean that if you've enabled it, that VMs will work out of the box, so you don't have to kind of do any configuration. And depending on the technology, there will be different ways of how to handle that. So Portmaster will most probably see different VMs and what they're doing, also the technology, and depending on which technology is behind that, different information will be available to match VMs or containers. So for example, if we look at Docker and like what they're doing for Docker desktop, so Docker of course is a container solution, but kind of fits the same definition for Portmaster. So for example, one thing that we're looking into that we could provide, we don't know yet exactly, is that you can match Docker images or Docker containers by name or things like that, so you can actually have Docker containers running and control where they connect to, if they go through the SPN or not, and things like that. So you can have full control over what Docker containers do in your network and how they connect to their systems. So there's quite a lot of work still to do there, of course. And when we start with VM support, of course, it will be in steps. So it won't just be like, here's VM support and everything works. We'll start slow with, okay, Portmaster will detect the different technologies. We'll tell you this is the VirtualBox VM, this is a Parallels VM, this is a Hyper-V VM, stuff like that. So technologies possibly matching by MAC address or IP address, depending on the technology, which makes more sense, or both, and you can decide which one to use. So, and this of course will be extra work for every virtualization system that we support. So we'll kind of start with probably the more common ones and then kind of move into more niche ones in time.
Which would you think is a more common one?
The common ones are probably on one side you have the big vendors like VMware. Then you have I don't know, Parallels is Mac only, right? Yeah, so not parallels for now. So, and then VirtualBox is a big one.
Yeah.
We have on Linux, we have KVM, we have all the libvirt based systems that we can probably just support on a technology basis. So that of course includes all the other front ends like GNOME boxes or stuff like that. So Linux is a bit more kind of intertwined how these work. So it's kind of more technology based, not vendor based. So well, these are the obvious ones off my head.
Yeah, so. Innovator Dev said VM support is kind of weird at the moment, and I guess this is sort of like where you might have lost, like, in your continuation. It's like at the moment we don't officially support VMs. Like we said that VMs are out of scope at the moment, and yes, there are some VM stuff that works. Yeah. I know VirtualBox works and GNOME Boxes works next to Portmaster, and Portmaster sort of sees the traffic and everything. But yeah, so what this would mean is official support, and you already told me like this might break then the GNOME boxes.
It could possibly break existing workarounds.
Not intentionally, but we won't take them into account. So this is not like this. We want to make it right for the feature itself. And if it by accident would break something else, just so you know. So Innovator Dev, of course, you as a Portmaster Unlimited subscriber will get the feature anyway. So it will be advanced support for you for more stuff. But I agree, it's a little bit interesting at the moment and so on. So yeah, and he was counting down some like Quem, VirtualBox, VMware Workstation, and Hyper-V with a heart next to it. And Micropanda said he's interested. Okay. Yeah, with CubesOS. Do you know what CubesOS virtualization technology is used? We know that CubesOS, at least, like we heard reports that it works partially. I tried CubesOS myself. Did not like it that much. So back on Fedora. Not too much experience there. But do you have experience with CubesOS?
I've used it once, but I don't have any recent first-hand experience. But I can definitely see us supporting CubesOS, either implicitly because we already support the underlying architecture, but I'm not sure like how this will turn out. Maybe it will turn out as kind of Portmaster will only detect the different virtualization zones and not the applications within them. That really depends on like how CubesOS is built and how well we can interface with all their things, because of course CubesOS is all about security and detaching things, so it will be difficult to kind of hop all these bridges, all these gaps to get all the information we need to know if like which VM this was and like which process and which VM and like how all stuff goes.
So we'll see.
we will see. I can imagine that we will have support implicitly or explicitly, that we have to actually build some things, but it's way too early to go into details regarding that.
Yeah. So Xen said, Innovator Dev said they use Xen, at least he thinks. So
yeah, we'll have to see. Thanks.
We'll have to see.
Thanks for the heads up.
We're not starting it right now.
Yeah.
We just want to share it as a main topic so that you know what's going on around in our head. And Lisandro gave a great sort of like intro to it in the Discord where he's like asking about Docker. Oh, and you're now there as well, Lisandro. Okay, I did not ignore Discord. It is open as well, so thanks for like asking there as well. Aren't the distros in front of VM? I'm not sure what you mean by there. I mean, OpenSUSE PM is not automatically loaded properly due to the systemd or tails. What do you mean by portmaster is not automatically loaded? I mean, I have not used OpenSUSE. Like, we don't officially support it. I know they accept the RPM format, but it's
I'm
not
not sure
a Fedora. You're thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking, but well, it's just loading is part of the systemd thing, or like possibly there's an issue with the installation. OpenSUSE not accepting our systemd file or something, or
oh, you mean in that way?
Because not like enabling automatically, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Don't know. OpenSUSE. Like we sort of focus on a couple of things. Also not Linux Mint, and also not like some other derivations. We sort of want to focus on the big ones. We're not no. There's no, like, for us there is no intent to go into different
the thing,
VMs, just because
the thing with distros is like how it normally works is that you have a developer that creates a piece of software, and then you have distro maintainers who are like, I would like to have that in my distro, and they do the work because they know how their own distro works, and can flip all the switches to create their own package to make it easily installable in their own distro. Where we are now is that we want to give this to people, and we kind of are in a position where we kind of try to make it available somehow on most distros, but there are just too many for us to dig into every one of them and just make sure everything works flawlessly. That's in the Linux ecosystem, that's not our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our job is to create the software, create documentation for it, and then the distro maintainers can go get that information, get the software, and bake it into their distro if they want to.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of a like
how it's supposed to work. No, and I think a great info there is Manjaro reached actually out, and I met with one of the maintainers of Manjaro and in Vienna, and Portmaster is now part of the Manjaro repo. So
so they did exactly that. They looked at what do we have. They took what we have, they adapted it to better fit Manjaro and how they want to package stuff, and did that. Exactly. So they did their part. They maintained that package in their distro, and that's how they provide our software to their users. So of course we try to take a shortcut to provide that directly to our users where we can, but it's actually not our job in the ecosystem. Of course, we want to cross as many bridges as we can, because we believe that
it is supposed to be for everyone.
There's so much value in this, and we want people to have it. But just going after every distro just isn't possible.
Oh, that's a great question. Lisandro asks how the community can help in regards to get us into more repos. I actually have no clue. Manjaro reached out to us. I think this has been our main experience for now. They reached out to us, and maybe through them, I don't know how connected they are. I guess not so much, if I sort of believe the open source news from Nick from the Linux experiment, for instance, and stuff like that. So I don't know, but if you know distro maintainers, if you have contacts, we'd love to. Running an open source privacy project and company has helped us to get in touch with a couple of companies already and other people in the space, and we love talking with people and just getting in touch and just working together, improving the lives of everybody. So please just reach out. I don't know.
You can just, if you have a favorite distro, and I don't know how they how a particular distro manages their kind of contributions, but normally there is a way to kind of request or submit packages, and if you kind of know your distro well, then you can probably just become the maintainer of the Portmaster package for that distro. So you can supply the systemd file and the integrations, and you can kind of, I don't know, raise a pull request on their repos or whatever.
Yeah.
However they are organized, and submit that and have them review it and work through the issues with them.
Okay.
For the more technical people of you.
So, absolutely. And maybe when we're already so deep into that whole thing, one small detour if you want, and if you would entertain me a bit.
Entertain you? Oh no, what is...
What are your thoughts regarding Flatpak? We have been asked so often to do different packaging managers, and just, I don't know. You don't have to get into it. All is well. I just want to ask, because this, of course, is the whole idea behind Flatpak. Like, package it once, have it everywhere. And sandboxed. Maybe that's where you want to start.
Well, yeah. If we were to use Flatpak, we'd be on the verge of abusing it, because of course we'd have to disable all the like sandboxing stuff, because we need access to all the files to be able to see what is going on. So we need kind of full network access, be able to integrate with the system, with the firewall, all sorts of stuff. So
not typical Flatpak.
That's not typical Flatpak. Also, how Portmaster is currently built, it's actually 3 parts. So there's one system service that runs with system privileges in the background and starts even before we log in. And then there's the notifier that is a thing that starts at login with user privileges, which is a user service. And then there's the UI itself, the app itself, which is also is not a service, but is a user application. So we have 3 different types of kind of applications that kind of go into one and provide that. And last time I checked, that wasn't possible. Things may have changed. If anyone has the time and the knowledge of Flatpak to evaluate Flatpak and tell us if that is possible now, that'd be cool. Then we'd be willing to spend more time there and look into it again. Last time we checked, it wasn't feasible to use Flatpak.
And so maybe for all the Windows people who are here as well, it's the same structure for Windows as well. Like there is this core structure and then the UI, and you have the notifier, and it's 3 things. And with Windows, it's also a kernel extension. That's part of the core service also. And so it's the same thing. Just so you know, like this is how Portmaster works. In our docs page, link below, everything is split out. Like we have a fairly okay graphic explaining
there's kind of
like the different layers of Portmaster.
A diagram showing you like how they connect to each other. And
which of course also like, and we had this discussion on the Discord, people are like, oh, Portmaster's consuming so much RAM. Like close the UI. Like I haven't the UI open all the time. Typically it's closed. So the UI takes up more RAM the more connections you have. And yes, Portmaster, the core itself, a little bit as well, but it's way less RAM. I think Innovator Dev actually called somebody out on that and was like, just close the UI. And it's like...
Yeah, the UI can take a gig of RAM easily if you have a lot of connections, but the background service will stay around 100 megabytes or less, sometimes a lot less.
I think
so. Of course, if you're using VPN, then Portmaster will actively be handling your traffic. So there will always be more RAM in there because that's your traffic flowing through Portmaster. Just in case.
SPN.
So if you're using the SPN, traffic will be flowing through Portmaster, and of course that takes more RAM. Of course, which of course, if the connections all end, will be freed again or be reserved by the Go runtime, the programming language system, in order for performance reasons. But normally the background service takes less than 100 megabytes of RAM. So that's usually not the part that eats your resources. It's the UI.
MicroPanda. I want to, Lisandro did not forget, I want to get back to that as well, but MicroPanda, sort of like, because we're talking about connections, we're talking about the SPN, and it sort of like fits into the conversation. It was asking regarding torrenting through the SPN, what do we have as recommendations, because it can be taxing on the network itself, and not torrenting like illegal stuff. So I guess a lot of Linux ISOs.
Yeah,
that's what we all agree on.
Lots of Linux ISOs.
No, but I'm actually torrenting them most of the time as well. Just from my experience, maybe to add in there, I like to use qBittorrent or Fragments. I found both to work. I've heard on the Discord that some don't like some of those clients, and maybe is it the torrent file maybe as well. Some don't like that you're not seeding, you're only receiving. So you're like,
it depends.
You can if you download something from somebody, and at the same time that person needs stuff that you have already downloaded from somewhere else, then you can seed back to that person. Yeah, that's true. You're right.
So, but how the SPN is built, there's currently no way that people can connect back to you through the SPN. Yeah. Also, because that can be a path, a kind of a traffic path that can be exploited. So that's something we're very careful with, because then someone can connect to you and kind of try to identify you. Mm-hmm. So it's only outgoing connections. Yeah. And that's why nobody can connect back to you, because it just won't work. And so normally you'll only be downloading, but if you're downloading from another person, Rafael said, who has things that you don't have, but you
have things that he needs,
exactly.
and he doesn't have yet.
Yeah. So if it's with people you connect to, you can also send them stuff. But normally uploading won't really work over the SPN.
Yeah. And Innovator Dev says, or maybe before going into that, of course, because when you're done and you have downloaded everything, those connections which are open through the SPN will maybe stay open for as long as that person is pulling the rest of the data, but afterwards your connections aren't open anymore, and there is no incoming connections allowed through the SPN, as you were saying, so you're not seeding at that point.
And we know it's a very, very small difference, just 2 letters exchanged, but we're a privacy company, not a piracy company.
No, that's of course true as well. No, and this is our focus. Yeah, absolutely. So it is okay, and it is cool technology. No, actually, from a technology perspective, torrenting is great, and it's the reputation it got is bad, and we sort of love the idea of stuff like video streaming through torrenting, where you have as more people watch the same thing, it gets more stable, except the other way around, how it is with all the centralized stuff like YouTube, where websites crash and stuff like that. Yeah.
Torrenting has brought a lot of innovation to the peer-to-peer ecosystem. So there's
a
lot of stuff being reused, technologies being incorporated into other products, and also we will in the future probably use some of the technology that was invented for torrenting in the SPN to scale it. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely great technology, and
no, from a technology perspective, great. No, and Innovator Dev said qBittorrent works fine for him with good setting hygiene. Maybe if you want, share the settings you use for qBittorrent with us, and I'll put them up on a wiki page. We want to have a community wiki. It's already up, wiki.safing.io. The docs page I want to sunset in the near future.
We'll slowly move over
and migrate everything to the wiki, but new stuff like that with cool screenshots and everything, I'd like to have more of those in the wiki. And so if you have something, let me know and I'll put it in there. And everybody who's watching, just let us know. Like it's a community thing. We want everybody to have as much information as possible. Great. Okay. You wanted like, I guess like with the VM support, we're almost, we detoured a lot. Do you want to close something there?
I think we're good. If there are any questions regarding VM support, that of course would be great to hear, to see kind of where are your thoughts going, what would your use cases be. So all of your questions in that regard help us to kind of grasp the needs of our users here, because that's of course who we're building this for you guys to have it. So the more you can tell us what you need, what you're using, that's definitely something that's helpful. And when we kind of get closer to starting work on this, we'll probably also do polls and stuff on Discord, so we kind of get a grasp on like what will be the first things we'll go into.
Okay, and somewhat related question to the regards of us splitting and sort of like with what you said, like it will be supported first for them sort of to signalize as well, like it is those people who are supporting us, who are helping us develop those new things. And Lisa Rando even suggested that we might put a layer in between privacy features for free, because this is what we say is our goal, and it is, and then have all those ads and browsing speed features, and of course the SPN is a separate tier as well. Just to address this, ads sort of are an issue in regards to privacy, and I think they're like, this book is great for that. I even have it in the background. Surveillance Capitalism by
Shoshana Zuboff.
Exactly, that's how you pronounce it. And it sort of like describes the way of how we started off with the internet, and sort of like everybody needed to pay their bills for the servers and for the traffic and everything. And so we started running ads, and those ads like weren't measured. It was like billboards, and people were greedy and wanted to get more money out of it. So they started tracking people through the ads to get the most money out of them, to make the ads more effective and stuff like that. And this is how you end up with situations where, because of all those ads following you around and tracking you, Amazon knows that somebody is pregnant before they know themselves. And stuff like that, by changing behavior and through the tracking. So privacy and ads, and this is the reason why we have ad blocking included, because it's very, very, very much interlinked. And it's not something where sort of like, it's not just speed, it's not just the annoyance of the ads, it's actually the tracking inside them, which is bad. Yeah.
Lisandro, can I ask you to elaborate on what you mean with having another layer? I'm not sure what you mean here by that.
I thought it's a feature layer where we can sort of like have the privacy for free, and then have sort of like a no ad for the €3 or something, and then we have the SPN, the unlimited, sort of like not supporter in regards to just features, but have a sort of like a split in between. This is how I understood it.
A separate kind of package to pay for. Is that what you meant?
I think.
Okay.
A different package, and I understood, and I wanted to sort of address that. Let's go to one of the OG questions before heading down some YouTube questions. One of the OG questions of Lisandro also was quick protocol for DNS, and are there plans to support it?
We'll probably support the quick protocol when either Golang gets support for it. So quick depending on like where things are going, there is this, of course, there's quick, raw quick, and then there is HTTP3, which is kind of quick. That's, I guess, the pun. So depending like how the libraries and the Golang standard library will support these, the support will come in the future. We probably won't invest in just creating a custom solution for that. We'll probably just wait for the depending libraries and the Golang standard library to get support for that. And then once that is there, it's probably gonna be really easy to just enable and activate that. So I've looked into this, I think a half a year ago. There wasn't all too much progress back then. So I don't know where we're at today, so we'll just have to wait to see what happens there.
Yeah. I was reading some of the comments to sort of like follow up. So
what was the other question from Alessandro, the first one?
That we already answered. It was Docker.
But for Portmaster, not kind of not support as a kind of
to run Portmaster inside Docker.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. You want to?
That's what I understood.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So question is, can Portmaster run inside Docker? Okay. Theoretically, yes. It's similar to the Flatpak thing where we can bend it to somehow work and get a Portmaster. That means you're not gonna have a UI. Just via the browser. You're not gonna have the tray icon unless you install that separately outside of Docker, which then defeats the purpose of using Docker. But so we're just not gonna have the backend. We're gonna have to give that Docker container all of the rights, which again defeats a big part of Docker. And then that could actually work. You'll have to mount the full file system, probably to, you need access to the proc file system at least to find out like what the processes are and stuff like that. It may need more. So it's kind of just a let's use Docker, but let's find out how to turn all the features of Docker just to make it work. So yes, it can work somehow, but why would you want to? It defeats all the benefits of Docker at some point. So sure, you can just go ahead and install it in Docker and fiddle around until it runs, enable developer mode, export the ports so you can access the UI from the web browser and all that stuff.
Which is already a wiki page. And if you haven't done that and you think there's value to it and we just haven't seen it, please share it with us and I'll create a wiki page so that everybody can use Portmaster inside a Docker container. If you find value, it does not mean that if we don't that we have to see it. Maybe there's somebody else with the same use case. Share the use case with us and we can create a GitHub page, a wiki page for it. So please share it. Yeah. Please share it. It's actually useful. Stuff like this is what I love about our community. Having fun ideas.
I understand you could create a Docker container that you just run with one command and it has all the settings, everything set in there just to try it out differently, which is an interesting idea. Just try it out. If it works, tell us how you did it and what you liked about it, and we can pass it along.
Okay. Fernando said he tried to run similar as AdGuard Home.
AdGuard Home. Well, AdGuard Home that's the one that's just the DNS server, right, for kind of the home network, which is similar to Pi-hole. A lot more similar to Pi-hole than to Portmaster. And Portmaster is made to run on your device to get all the information about processes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that you can block per application and not just... Like the idea is that you can still use Facebook for some reason in your browser and block it everywhere else. Or you have a dirty browser, for instance, where you're like, okay, that's the social media browser where I allow Facebook, and my regular browser has everything blocked and is clean and stuff like that. So that's sort of like the idea.
Also,
stuff you cannot do with Pi-hole, like at all.
Regarding Docker, everything is said only applies to Linux. It will not work at all on Windows, of course, because Windows, we require a kernel extension. You will never be able to load a system driver in Windows from a Docker container. Not going to happen. So,
yeah, great. Okay. Other question regarding blocking. Can we measure which filter is blocking what in order to optimize them for our use case? I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but Portmaster tells you what the reason is for blocking.
I'm not sure if filter means the kind of reason or if filters maybe the filter list.
But that's telling you as well. It says in the bottom as well.
It tells you, but weird, because it just tells you the IDs, and then you have to open the settings and find the ID of that filter list to find out which one it was. It doesn't link it correctly or doesn't tell you the full name, just gives you the IDs of the filter lists. So the reason message you see when opening the connection details in network activity view in Portmaster will give you just some IDs as a kind of it will give you a sentence, but it'll list filter list IDs as the reason something was blocked. So that's something, of course, will improve in the future. But other than that, the Portmaster tells you the reason why things were blocked, and what I'm hoping to kind of have soon is that we can group connections by the reason. So you can kind of have an overview over how much of my connections were blocked by which rule or system. And then you can kind of easily find out, okay, what part of Portmaster is doing the heavy lifting here. Yeah.
Lisarando was clarifying the question. It was he wants to know which, like the count of them, how many filter lists are this applies to, and then which he can sort of disable because they're redundant.
I understand. Okay. In Portmaster,
maybe also say what the potential penalty on redundant entries in the filter list would be. Do you see a drawback in that anyway?
Yeah, that's what I just
wanted to. Okay,
so the filter lists are optimized already, so there is no difference in which, like, how many you activate, because it doesn't go through just a list to find things. That would be quite slow. So we use a two-step system. The first step is something called a Bloom filter, which basically very, very quickly tells you if a domain is not in the list or maybe yes in the list. And only if it's maybe yes in the list, so that's really quick. If maybe yes in the list, we actually go to the database, get that database entry, which is also quick. Also very quick, but a bit slower than the previous step, and get the entry for that domain, and it automatically gets all the entries where that filter list, in which lists this domain is, and then it just checks that list of the filter list it's in with the activated list, checks if there's a match, and if there is, it blocks it. So just activate away. There is no performance penalty depending on how many lists you have active or not.
Because it finds the domain first and then has associated all the lists, and then it just tells you what lists you have activated and which it's in. So if it's in 5 lists or if it's in 1 list, in Portmaster it's only saved once, and it tells you in which lists it's included. So there's no redundancy in that.
And we can do it that way because what we do is that we fetch and pre-process all lists at safing on our server automatically, and we then create small update packages that Portmaster downloads and keeps its system up to date up to hourly. So you really have very highly up-to-date lists, high performance, maybe a bit heavy on disk space. So if you're wondering where your disk space is going, the filter list take up in kind of the optimized stored form can take up a couple 100 MB because they're not optimized for storage space, they're optimized for speed.
But have you...
and it works well, so speed is great.
But because you said heavy, have you looked at how big programs at the moment are?
They can be huge, which for desktops is okay. Our issue is currently
okay, but
Android.
You're saying for exactly. This is the reason why you're saying it, because on phones space is still a little bit more for premium. So Listerando already said thanks and no performance penalty for enabling more lists. That's all true, and this is also the reason why we're saying why we're sort of disencouraging the use of custom filter lists on your device. If you have domains you want to add, if you found great filter lists which are out there, tell us. We want to add them into our list so that we can aggregate them, put them into this high performance, pre-curated list and everything. Everybody can benefit from it. It's not just you, which is also cool, great for the community.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's only an issue with the how the lists are from a license perspective. So we're respecting the licenses. We're not just grabbing everything. And we might need to figure something out there. Okay, I think the question has been older. I sort of missed a couple of people who have joined us. Dash is back again. Welcome, Dash. He asked for NextDNS. Any problems combining ASP and Portmaster with NextDNS, for instance?
I think a lot of people have done that. There is regular talk here and there on GitHub, I think at least. So there should be some guides out there telling you how to do it. It should work well. That's my latest information. But yeah, check the GitHub issues. There should be something there.
Maybe just a thing there as well. People who are using NextDNS sometimes tell us that we're leaking DNS, that we are not actually blocking stuff. Because they see the DNS entry, they see the DNS request in their NextDNS. I think it's NextDNS where they see the DNS request. Sometimes Pi-hole people complain about the same thing.
Yeah.
What Portmaster does, just so you know, is gather all the information. And then DNS request is not an actual connection. It's just Portmaster looking up where would this DNS resolve to, getting that information back and telling you this domain would connect to this server. This server is located in this country based on the IP address. The DNS server doesn't actually tell you that. So it's in the GeoIP list, which is also part of the local Portmaster. But there is no connection going out. So this has only been the DNS request. And yes, NextDNS sees that and might not return actually an address then.
Yeah.
So
and Portmaster should detect correctly if NextDNS blocked something, and it will show correctly in your connection view. So you'll have a entry with a red dot telling you this was blocked, and the reason will be blocked by upstream DNS resolver. So it actually correctly detects if your resolver blocks something.
But then, of course, it can tell you the IP address it would resolve to, and then it can tell you the country it would go to and stuff like that. And Portmaster, of course, has to gather all of this because you can, for instance, block by country. So you can say, well, I don't want to connect to this country, so the DNS lookup will go through. Portmaster will see the DNS. It will check which country this DNS would be located in, this IP address would be located in, and then would stop anyway. So Portmaster needs all of that information, and it's not an actual connection going out, just as a quick thing here. But thank you, Dash, for the question. Yeah?
Maybe to add the technical explanation why it's that way. It wasn't always that way. There was a time where we actually directly blocked DNS requests, but we had to disable the Windows DNS cache service for that to work, because Windows applications and now on Linux too. But I'm gonna just use the Windows example now here. The applications themselves don't actually send DNS requests. They use a DLL file provided by Windows to directly send that request to the DNS cache Windows service, and that's Windows service that makes the requests. So Portmaster actually is blind to which application made the DNS request. So in order to actually identify the application, we first need to let that go through, return, and then we see which connection then establishes the TCP, HTTP, whatever connection to a server. And then we can put all the pieces together and be like, now I know it was you. And then we can apply the correct rules, because otherwise rules would just go weird, because we'd be blocking DNS requests if we not even knowing what
where
to
they
do.
come from.
You can, however, if you really want to block DNS requests without knowing which applications you're blocking them from and before they go out, you can open the special application called System DNS Client, and you can start editing the settings for that thing. Be careful, you will have weird behavior, but if you want to, you can do that. If you mess things up, just delete that app and Portmaster will auto-create it with the default settings. That will work.
Delete that. You have said a couple of things which need some asterisks.
Okay.
Delete
Thanks.
the app
Yeah.
profile within Portmaster. Don't delete the...
You can't.
No.
There's
I
not
know,
even a button.
but I wanted to say within Portmaster, delete that app in Portmaster.
Yeah,
for
the
Portmaster.
settings profile.
Exactly.
within the
And you
UI.
said it will establish a connection. The app will try to establish a connection. There will
Attempt.
be no attempt.
Yes.
Exactly. There will no data flow out. And that, like, so that DNS goes out, the information comes back, Portmaster hands it back, the app gets the information where it needs to connect to, it tries the connection, Portmaster sees that, applies the rules and blocks it there. So the app will...
Nothing ever leaves your
Exactly.
host.
And this is exactly what I wanted to say, because how you phrase it sounded
Thanks,
a little
thanks
bit...
a lot for like,
all is
clarifying that.
All is well. All is well. Okay. Okay, we're already almost at 3 o'clock.
Wow, that's true.
I know.
That went fast.
Do you want to talk about the Portmaster stable release today? We have somebody, ZZZ, said, good job, new release, Portmaster. Thank you. And Innovator Dev already said how he liked it as well. Do you want to share a little bit, especially about some of the changes?
Like the features that were in.
And I can tell you what Innovator said, what he liked.
Go ahead.
He liked the caching.
Yeah. So we've noticed that's one of the new things. We've noticed that there are weird issues we could not yet identify, probably because of an issue within the SPN. So that's for users that have the SPN enabled. That DNS requests are sometimes too slow, and until we get to the ground to that and figure it out, we'll just embrace the DNS cache. So whenever Portmaster detects that your DNS queries are slower than they should be in a regular and normal medium speed household internet connection, it will give a notification and be like, Portmaster detected that your DNS queries are slower than usual. Do you want to enable using a DNS cache more aggressively? And if you enable that, then Portmaster will use expired DNS answers and respond with them, and then resolve the domain again afterwards. This in 99.9999% is not a problem because IPs don't change that quickly. They sometimes do change. And sometimes they change quite quickly. So especially rather big sites have very short expiry times on their DNS records. But they hardly ever use it. But when they use it, of course, they want to have very little downtime. So they're like, let's just scrap the caching and let's just kind of get a revenue going and keep it flowing. So they just use very small TTL, so time to live. That's the That's the expiration time set on a DNS record.
How small is small?
So it's normally 1 minute, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes lower than that, just seconds.
So you get the DNS request and it's valid for that one time, basically.
So Portmaster already raises that to at least 1 minute anyway, because like under 1 minute, that's not caching. That's like against the spirit of DNS. But in that case, Portmaster will just give you back. So if it really changes the IP address, Portmaster will give you back an old IP, and your browser will complain that there's some weird issue or it can't connect. But in the meanwhile, Portmaster will have gotten the new DNS request. You just refresh and everything's good. That will happen once in a while, maybe, or not at all, maybe. So,
but this feature is still off by default for now.
Yeah, it's off by default, and it will just prompt you if your DNS is slow. If your DNS is fast all the time anyway, all good. You're doing great. If not, Portmaster will hint you at there's a feature you can enable to improve performance for that. So that's a very nice thing to kind of have a better user experience with Portmaster, especially for people using the SPN, because DNS queries over the SPN are a bit slower anyway. Plus, we're still investigating some flow control issues where DNS requests are especially affected. That's one of the features. The other one is also really cool. So the other one is a lot of people have asking that for like since Portmaster came out.
Wait, I'm not sure which one. Okay, just tell me. I'm not sure as well. I mean, so I've been in the betas channel for some time now.
Portmaster has its auto update system.
Oh yeah, I know.
Which updates both the software and feature lists, for example. And some people have been reluctant to enabling that because they kind of value stability a lot and don't want the software to just update itself. And that's something we've now implemented. So now there are two settings. There's like automatic software updates and automatic intelligence updates, I think it's called. So
one is the filter lists, just the filter lists.
Just filter lists and broadcast notifications. So like just data, not software. So that's the one that is now new and is also on by default. If you had it disabled, you will get notification. Portmaster will prompt you and be like, things change, please review your settings. We don't just want to silently enable stuff for people, not cool. We actively tell you and be like, okay, this is the new default, this is how things are, please check your settings. And then what's also really cool about that, if you have at least one of them enabled, so the classic would be you have software updates disabled, but you have Intel updates enabled, then Portmaster will still get the new update indexes to know what is new, and it will actually prompt you that there is a new software update, but you can decide whether or not to get it or not. So it will be like, there are new updates available. Do you want to download them? And you can be yes or like later or whatever. So you can kind of have a lot more control over the update process now, which is very nice.
Yeah, no, great. I forgot about that. Do you want to share why we did that as well? Like it's not just because people were suggesting it.
Yeah, so we have...
Which of course we hear you. If you're suggesting stuff, we hear you. But sort of like we need to prioritize stuff. Yeah, but why did we have to do it?
We had this on a roadmap for some time, and the specification for that existed for probably half a year already. Well, we didn't find the time to actually implement it. But now with the ongoing Android development, where Android works very different than the desktop platforms in the form of updates and distribution, we had to actually implement that to correctly support Android. So that's where we decided to implement that, and also add the new requirements of the Android platform to the update system, so we could kind of package everything together, implement that together, have the required compatibility with Android, plus give you that great feature. We're like, yes, let's do that.
One more question. I know it's 4:00 and we would typically stop now, but it's so very related and I like the question a lot. And also maybe we can clarify something Lisandro asked on YouTube regarding like the DNS settings and how many DNS we can put in there. Because I guess this is a misinformation that you think it's only a pair. You can have more than that, but the defaults are always a pair. You can quickly change between the defaults, but you can add as many as you want. The question, but I will then go into the whole question. He would be happy to import, export user settings. Okay, we don't go into that today. And is it possible to balance more than one DNS server, measuring in fastest one? If I'm not wrong, we need to choose just a pair of DNS servers. So maybe go into like how many DNS servers actually are you typically enabled with the default portmaster install, because it's not 2. Typically, I think it's at least 3. Per default, you can change everything. Maybe we should change how we display that, just because I'm like,
that's
just
a brilliant idea.
I know, just came to me right here. See, this is live. We should display it. But how does load balance? I don't actually know. How does...
So, okay. Let's start in the beginning.
Oh, no. It's already one past
Of your
4.
question.
Okay.
Start with your first question. So, or from Lisandro. There's a list of DNS servers you configure. You can theoretically put an unlimited amount into there. Don't try that, maybe. So you can just put a list of unspecified length into there, and Portmaster will use the topmost of them that is working. So it's not kind of load balancing and like randomizing where to send stuff. It's a failover system. So it just uses the first one in the list as long as that works. If that starts failing for some reason, just goes to the next and the next and so on.
And which one is the third one in that list?
The third one. So you see a list of DNS servers, but then Portmaster also inherits the servers from the system. So
from the operating system, where
from
it's
the
installed.
Operating system. So that's the
installed on
DNS server that either you configured yourself or some software configured, or your router sends you, or your ISP sends you, whatever. These are configured in there, and they're used for special purposes. So, for example, for checking if you're online, for DNS requests that are for the local network that a global resolver cannot possibly know. These are sent to the local resolver. So there are a couple of things here that play together. And also, what is still currently the case, which we are trying to figure out how to communicate and implement that the best way, that both makes Portmaster usable and people understand what's going on, is that if all of your resolvers in your list fail, it will fall back to the system server. So
in what cases would stuff like that be important?
So that means that because if you end up with no resolvers, you're effectively offline. And in order to keep you online, or if you've misconfigured all your resolvers, if they're broken, nothing will work anymore. So it falls back to the system resolver. Also, maybe if you want that on purpose, if you only want to use the server to configure it in your system, you can just delete all the servers.
Yeah, but there's one use case where you need the local resolver as well. This is the reason why I wanted to say. Like if you have a local area like
there
DNS.
There are a couple use cases.
Yeah, okay, but I wanted to say this is the reason why it's on by default. Like if you're in a company setting or if you're in a school setting and you have a school web address which is not publicly routed, this is where you need that, and this is why it's on by default.
Yeah, so
it is the last resort going down, but this is why it's on by default, so that we don't break anything.
Yeah, so there's split horizon DNS, so it figures out like which is the one that actually has the answer. It reduces your exposure to DNS servers. Also, like if a network has configured something called a search domain, it will automatically respect that if it's not too aggressive, and will send queries there. So it's kind of built to work out of the box as well as possible, as well as protect your privacy as well as possible. So that's where that comes from. Or for example, if you configure a DNS server with an IP address, then Portmaster has to figure out that IP address. So it uses the system solver to get the IP address of your configured DNS server to actually be able to connect to that. But better always provide the IP address in the configuration. We have documentation on that, how to do that. And all the examples and all the defaults have IP addresses specified in there, so Portmaster does not have to make a lookup and can connect more reliably to your DNS server.
Okay, I quickly responded to a couple of questions in chat. Thank you for this split. I hope it worked out. Yeah, no, thank you all for being here as well.
Yeah, great questions.
Typically, I don't know. I have both chats open. I'm not sure if we should keep it on YouTube because you're watching it on YouTube, or if we should have it on Discord as well. But the Discord, of course, is where you can have questions in preparation, so we can actually think about them. Lately, we've been sort of like, of course, prepared for this live stream, but like main topics have sometimes been a little bit, not so, like we have started thinking about them today, not like days in advance. But I think having the event up and having the links everywhere is better to have it prepared. So main topics are typically a little bit lax. But as you know, and those who have come back for a couple of live streams now, thank you, of course. And for everybody who's new, just know it's every other week. So in a 2-week cycle, it's always 3 p.m. Central European time, or now Central European summertime, of course, and it's about an hour. So this is the reason. I'm not dodging anything innovative dev. It's just like it's already past 4. We need to get working again and back to what we're doing. And thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody who has joined us. And thank you. Yeah, I guess that's me.
Did anyone find the Easter egg?
I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, like you still have a minute left. Like to wrap things up. Of course, like if you're using Portmaster and you're not yet a subscriber that's not YouTube, but kind of subscribed or have bought packages for Portmaster Supporter or Portmaster Unlimited, that is how we're funded. If you love our work, please go ahead and say thank you that way, and also get more awesome stuff. Definitely. So we're still working on a lot of things, getting things forward.
Absolutely.
So if you love our work, support us.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. Have a good week. See you in 2 weeks.